And that is where skills can be developed. Otherwise, you just develop a kind of blindness for something that could occur just because you think you know. And I think it's more helpful to know that you don't know because it keeps your mind open for yourself and for others.
That is fantastically put. It's more useful to know that you don't know than to think you know. Wow, I like that. I think I'll borrow that one too.
Okay.
The most beautiful things come from multilingual people because you throw these ideas together in such nice ways, unexpected ways sometimes. You speak French, Polish, English, and German, yes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Wow.
that's my working languages.
Nice. Nice. That was just so nice. That was so nice. I will definitely borrow that one with quotation and the name.
Okay.
Well, then, the publishing of today's episode is a week late with good reason. I do apologize for that. It does, however, promise a particularly rich conversation that captures the essence of insight shared between friends, dare I say. All in keeping with the free, authentic spirit of independent podcasting. This episode of the English Coach podcast, like all the rest, takes my usual relaxed, accessible, human approach to your learning experience.
And sometimes we have to be patient because things are happening in visible ways. And I think in Germany we're used to a very factual approach. We do protocols and we write down summaries and so on, and we explain things with sometimes very explicit, but we say things just once. And in other situations, I will have to understand it. I will just have hypotheses. Hypotheses? What do you say? Yeah, assumptions
Yes,
about
yes.
what the reason could have been. For example,
Yes.
maybe in the meeting, people won't answer to me because if there's a senior person, they say they are youth or from their culture, they will not voice their concern or their questions if the senior person doesn't speak. So the boss speaks could be a kind of unwritten rule. And I have to find out and make assumptions. It could be that way, that it's not as equal as we are in our company, for example, where the members of the team are equal experts, let's say, and they can really influence the decisions of their team leader. And I have to assume that it works a different way, that sometimes we have really to read between the lines. I think the Japanese say to read the air, that in Japanese school or in the youth socialization, you learn to read the air. So you learn to know and to be aware that there are things that are invisible and that shape reality. So a silence will be something different. It would be something very awkward, maybe between two people who come from a more, let's say, extrovert culture, maybe American culture, where it's not possible to share the silence. And I was told that one of the beautiful things in Japanese, in friendship in Japan is when you are able to share the silence.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
It's not easy. I can do that with my cat. I do that with my cat.
Absolutely great. And of course you will have people who love silence and who speak with their or share the silence with their cat in other contexts.
Well, it's funny because again, in the last episode, I think it was the first episode where I actually trusted myself totally to just speak freely, freestyle German and publish it. I really don't care. The only perfection I promise is in my own language. Yes, if someone wants perfection, they can book a course. But I did that in the last episode, and we were talking about exactly this communication thing. Where does it end? Yes, I mean, think of the meeting. A meeting has a specific goal. And the question is, from the many instances you mentioned there, could it be that effective communication, is best measured by the feedback you get from your listener?
Herzlich willkommen zum English Coach Podcast, präsentiert von trainingtree.de, die personalisierte Lösung im Bereich Erwachsenenbildung. Und jetzt dein Gastgeber, iAntonio Patterson.
Season 3 starts today, and I will spare you the fanfare. Nothing special about this day. I've always done it this way. It is what it is, and there really is nothing new under the sun. Everything already said, everything already read, and anybody can blow a horn. But to the contrary, today is actually a one-in-a-lifetime event. It's the 3rd season of the English Coach podcast, and this show is just getting over celebrating its 2nd Sweet 16. We've just discovered that there might be life on Venus, and the sun is exploding in new and interesting ways. Sibylle von Spitzen and Flavio Pragmatico, my 2 favorite helpers on the show, have finally met. And this episode 33 rings in the countdown to October 1st, where I intend to re-release my new and improved learning spaces. There will be more than ever before, so check it out for yourself if you want to be sure. Okay, so that was a proper introduction, I think. However, we'll all be called to adapt, to keep pace these days. And business as usual is becoming more and more an oxymoron. And for the purpose of this episode 33, we look at what I like to call cultural fluidity. We converse with the rather daring idea of accepting the different personalities, so to speak, that constitute the whole person in all of us, and about recognizing all of them individually, perhaps, as its own unique asset. So what's in it for you? Today we look at myths surrounding using a shared language and examples of where in real life things can in fact go wrong as a result of larger cultural differences. We explore specific instances of using something that is usually seen as an uncomfortable challenge, instead as an opportunity to improve, an opportunity to not only inform, but also to communicate and to get what you want. We agree that awareness of these factors could in fact go along to reduce the stresses of remote work. Notions of perfection sometimes haunt the adult learner of a foreign language, and who knows it better than who lives it? Today we get down to the meat of it, and you might even be able to infer for yourself the extent to which certain preferred measures of perfection may be nothing more than purely pretentious, or at best, in real life, non-existent. Today it's all about opinions, to be clear. None of us is speaking for any interests or organizations unknown. Ever mindful we are of our own rights understood, to shape our own contexts, and to hypothesize subjectively, with questions rather than answers, in a non-judgmental and non-moralizing way. And naturally, of course, the right to simply change our minds. This has always been my personal preferred approach to things, because everyone, I suspect, has, for whatever values they choose to uphold, their own good reasons. Today we talk about natural biases, power distance, Persian rugs, and flying chairs. So then, without further ado, our guest for today, Anna Royon Weigelt. Fantastic, Anna, that we are finally here. I've tried so long to get you on the show. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So, well, I'm just going to give a quick introduction to the listeners. Anna is a friend of mine. We have known each other for the longest while, and I was first introduced to Anna. And please do correct me if I'm wrong. I met Anna as a lecturer at the HTW Berlin. Yes, it's a university here in Berlin. And she was teaching me, or you were teaching me, I'm actually talking to you right now, intercultural management. And I was very inspired by the course. I liked your manner of presentation. And Yeah, also I was just inspired, and I think that's the best word that any trainer I think would want to hear from a learner.
Thank you.
You have your online presence at a site called Respea, which is RESPEA,
Mhm.
under your name as well, respea.de, where you have a wonderful slogan here that really moved me this morning when I looked at it again. And I just say it in German. Wir glauben, Erfahrungen zu machen, aber Erfahrungen machen uns.
Yeah.
This is fantastic. I think I will borrow this one.
Please do. It's not mine. It's not mine.
Yes.
Erich Fromm, but yes, I feel it inspiring. I found it some years ago already, and I have to say it's my favorite.
It is great. It is great. It's great. I mean, I try to push what is called here a learning experience. Yes, I try to make the
Hmm.
learning experience of
Yeah.
my course participants, present and past, and also anyone who, decides to be a fan or subscriber, to enrich the English language, most of the English language learning experience with real, sag mal so, Erlebnisse, yeah,
Hmm.
experiences that make it real, right? And that is why I really resonate with this one. Just quickly, I'm just introducing, and again, from what I understand, your specialization is, well, you are a consultant, an intercultural consultant, coach, mediator, and you help firms or individuals, maybe professionals, to find a new understanding, or is it to optimize their approach towards communicating across cultures, maybe on a management level,
Mm.
professional level, whatever. Is that correct?
That's correct. And I was thinking about the word experience, and I
Hmm.
think, yeah, that has something to do with my personal biographical experience too. And there is a
Yes.
continuity between who I am and what I do, in the sense that I've been I'm half French, half Polish. My father is
Hmm.
French, my mother is Polish. I was born in Germany, in Leipzig, in the former GDR. So
Yes.
it kind of it was a bath for me. I was bathing
Hmm.
in this atmosphere where you would build bridges every day, or kind of go from one culture to the other. It felt
Hmm.
very natural to me, and later on, I realized that it was not the case for everybody. My normality, this experience was shaping me, but it was not the experience that shaped others. And there was a phase of, let's say, feeling very uncomfortable, let's say, when I went to French school, for example, where you didn't have any room, any space for intercultural aspects, for recognizing other cultures, other languages, and so on. And myself being, like too wide or too transversal for
Hmm.
this context. And I suffered a lot of it. I thought I was not normal. I'm a kind of an alien, a stranger, and I have to be ashamed of
Hmm.
myself not being just French. Till I realized that someday, at some point, I said, no, I don't have to choose. It's not
Yes.
either
Yes.
or, it's and. And
Yes.
that's the idea with the experience too. So I'm using now, today I think I've grown into using this experience in the ambiguity, sometimes also from situations in different cultures, to use it and to help other people understand what's happening with them when they encounter difficulties, obstacles in communication with each other, be it in a private
Hmm.
context or in a professional one.
I can definitely resonate with that as well.
Mm-hmm.
I understand. It reminds me of an interview I had with a lovely lady. Her name is Jennifer Roch. She was in August in episode 29. And we spoke about that, the idea of giving yourself permission to
Mm-hmm.
be different things. You don't have to say that, this is what I am and that is what I'm
Mm-hmm.
not, depending on, well, what I like to call your action logic and the situation that you
Mm-hmm.
find yourself in. You should be able to dance between different personas without people judging you and
Mm-hmm.
saying, well, yesterday you were French and today you're Polish. That means you're
Mm-hmm.
fake. That is not the case. face.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big problem people face, I think, because that is also, from my experience, what you have to do to some extent when you deal with different languages.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes, some even
Mm-hmm.
believe that you have a different personality in another language. I don't know if that's true. I tend to believe that too, but some people don't, because they say, well, it's just the words you have, and they say the scope of expression that you have is not really you, the person who changes. But I suspect that the person changes a little bit between cultures, or the, let's say, as I said, the action logic, the
Mm-hmm.
logic that informs the decisions you make on how you speak, what you talk about,
Mm-hmm.
and how you present yourself, is it
Mm-hmm.
changes depending on where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yes.
noticed it, if I may give an example, because we're all using English. Also, I'm currently using English in everyday life, in my professional life, but it's
Yes.
not my native language. And I have a lot of colleagues who are in the same situation. We have a few British native speakers with their also specific accent and so on. And we think that since we speak the same language, we may understand each other. And very often, well, it's a myth, I think.
Mm-hmm.
When we, for example, speak of having a meeting, I'm quite sure the six persons who are inviting at the meeting expect something different. This meeting to be, for example, I'm now Germanized, I would say, in brackets, Germanized, because I'm used to see meetings as something you prepare for,
Mm-hmm.
you contribute to, and you shape, let's say, at the end of the meeting there should be either a decision or, let's say, next steps decided. And
An outcome.
coming from France at the very beginning, before I learned to do this, coming from France, meeting was for me just something where your boss said you would have to attend, and you would
Mm-hmm.
listen to the boss, and at the end you would have been informed that a decision has been taken, or there would be, let's say, confirmation that the boss was still your boss, but it was not, let's say, a
Mm-hmm. That's
really
interesting.
working intention, as or contributing as a team. And I think in a lot of situations like this, when we use some words in the language, we think, this faux amis, falsche Freunde.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you
False
say false
friends.
friends. Yes,
False
okay.
friends, yes.
And I love these. Actually, they're terribly uncomfortable because
You
usually,
love them.
yeah, I love them because actually you realize too late usually that there was a false friend amidst
Yeah.
in the middle of your conversation, but it's the chance to deepen it. Yeah, not
Yes.
to go so superficially over our everyday exchanges, especially now online. Yeah, we're
Mm-hmm.
almost all in home office, and our exchanges and relationships tend to be much more superficial, at least from my experience.
Yeah.
And when we have dissonance, we
Yes,
would
a
say in French, yeah,
dissonance. Yes, yes,
dissonance,
yes.
yeah,
Dissonance auf
in
Deutsch, ja.
German, yeah. And when you have it, it's just, oh, hold on. What are
Mm-hmm.
we talking about? I want to understand you. I want to
Mm-hmm.
make the efforts to understand you and not just to pass on
Mm-hmm.
information. And I think it's a
Yes.
chance. It's uncomfortable, but it's a chance. It's like a challenge. It's a chance to, to grow, to understand better, to take the time and the
Mm-hmm.
quality to not just to inform, but to communicate.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes, I understand. It's quite interesting how you said it. For the meeting is sometimes understood as a reminder from the boss to everyone that
Mm-hmm.
he is the boss, which is
Yes.
true. In some cases, that's what
Mm-hmm.
it's about. Very frontal, no specific plan for an outcome. Maybe even
Mm-hmm.
no agenda or anything. In some cultures, maybe a meeting is just and treffen, meeting and chatting
Mm-hmm.
at the ashtray, for cigarette
Yeah,
breaks or whatever.
yeah, as coffee
But
machine.
you also touched on something there that I find quite interesting, because right now, as we speak, all
Mm-hmm.
of us are doing more remote work. And I
Mm-hmm.
am actually in the process now. I mean, I've been doing online training since 2014. And,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's so many people who started it 2 months ago. And, to be honest, I'm a little bit surprised by that, because suddenly it's like accepted. But the the whole idea of us being forced into the remote working. I am, as we speak, in the process of building a short series of courses that focuses specifically on making sure that communication is effective in a remote setting, getting over what we call video stress, making sure that we get the right information. How do we confirm information? For example, you asking your person, your person in the meeting with you, what do you understand from what it is I said? Ask them to say it in their own words. Yes, making sure that you check in on them. You have enough breaks. You don't do the videos for too long. You plan things like that, and even little things like testing. Like if you're meeting with someone for the first time using a new system, it's good to factor in 10 minutes before to make sure that they understand little things like that. So I'm focusing as we speak, coincidentally, on a training course, basically on getting effective communication, business English, through business English, through remote learning, in a remote learning environment. And when was it? 2 days ago, spoke to another, she's another professor of mine. She's now in the States. And we did customer behavior and supply chain management and marketing together. And one of her biggest tips was basically to get people to repeat what it is you said. Yeah, let them to tell you, get them to tell you in their own words what they understand from what you just said. Yeah, things like just one tip. That's another show coming up, but it's interesting that you said that.
If I may add something to that,
Of
build on
course, of
that.
course.
This is a part of what we call active listening, what we use a lot in mediation when we, try to settle conflicts, to resolve conflicts, and because very often communication is blurred. We between what I, there is also a nice quotation here. I don't know it by heart because it's too long, but saying there is nothing. So communication is really not trivial between what you say, what I hear, what I think I understood, what you wanted to say, what you meant to say, how you said it, and so on. There are kind of 9 or 10 eventualities not to get along, but we have to try it. Yeah, that's the technique. I think we need communication techniques because everybody communicates. We think we are experts in communication, so everybody thinks, oh well, but actually there is a huge difference between just delivering information and communicating in a reflected way and taking the responsibility for our own communication, being aware of what we communicate, how we communicate, what channels we use, and so on. When do I use an email, and when is it more effective to use a phone call, to have a phone call, or to have a
Yes, or a cigarette break or a coffee break.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. You are now listening to episode 33 of the English Coach Podcast, the first in season 3 of the show. Now, I know for a fact that most of my listeners are German, so now a rather playful interlude just for my German listeners. Wie üblich sind die Shows überall verfügbar, kostenlos. Eine Liste der beliebtesten Podcast-Player findest du unter www.trainingtree.de/mobile. Es gibt sogar einen Eintrag auf YouTube für diejenigen unter euch, die es vorziehen, eure Inhalte dort zu hören. Weder meine Webseite noch meine Podcast-Hosting-Firma hat irgendein Interesse daran, dich aktiv online auszuspionieren. Leider kann ich aber nicht für alle Podcast-Spieler sprechen. Wenn du ein bisschen mehr auf deine Privatsphäre bedacht bist, die Podcast-App namens Overcast bietet, wie mir gesagt wurde, Datenschutzoptionen, die genau zeigen, welche Podcast-Anbieter dich gerade bespitzelt. Wenn du daran interessiert bist, die Shownotes für jede Folge direkt von mir persönlich per E-Mail zu erhalten, kannst du dich unter www.trainingtree.de Mobile anmelden. Der Englisch-Coach Podcast ist eine unabhängige Show. Es ist keine formale Lektion im klassischen Sinne. Wenn du Interesse an Unterricht hast, kannst du mich auch jederzeit persönlich über das Kontaktformular auf trainingtree.de kontaktieren. Ich freue mich drauf. I rather enjoy the direct tone of the German language. And while we're at it, I want to give an extra special shout out to all my listeners on Spotify. That seems to be where all the action is happening. So people, keep on keeping on, and remember, share it with a friend. So then, on to the show. Well, it's funny because again, in the last episode, I think it was the first episode where I actually trusted myself totally to just speak freely, freestyle German and publish it. I really don't care. The only perfection I promise is in my own language. Yes, if someone wants perfection, they can book a course. But I did that in the last episode, and we were talking about exactly this communication thing. Where does it end? Yes, I mean, think of the meeting. A meeting has a specific goal. And the question is, from the many instances you mentioned there, could it be that effective communication is best measured by the feedback you get from your listener? Do they do what you wanted them to do at the end of the day? Because, people can understand what you're saying, they understand even what you want. Yeah. But do they accept it? Do they act on it? Yes. Yeah. Do they just say yes, nod? I did that sometimes in some classes. I just nodded when I meant not that I understand. I mean, continue.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, continue. Maybe. I hear. Yeah, exactly. It's a topic, and I hope to put that together in some short courses and present them later, maybe on LinkedIn or something. All right.
Sounds
well.
great.
We have gotten off to a fantastic start. Now, I prepared a few questions for you. Now, we don't have to go into this so much. Maybe we've touched on them already. Now, the first two, intercultural mediation. Yes. And that was the first one, just generally speaking. And the second one, from your experience, what role does language and cultural sensitivity play in international firms? I'm a language trainer. I use business English to help people to communicate internationally, through training and coaching. However, my question is, from someone who is more focused on the intercultural mediation, consultation, and so on, I would ask you, to build a bridge between what it is you do and what I do, and ask you about the experience of from your experience, what role does language play in cultural sensitivity? Let's say, what role does language play and cultural sensitivity play in an international context for firms? What do you think?
I think it's a complex questions, and I'm trying to link it with concrete situations I've experienced, maybe in firms. This means this is not a generalization, but just an illustration of the complexity. For example, in my current job as head of career center at Kisma Business School, I'm helping students from abroad, coming from various countries, from different continents, make their studies here, study for a master, and then ease the transition to the German job market. And what I realized, for example, is that very often language has also something to do with fear. So learning a language or not being fluent enough, I realized this morning also, asking myself, will I speak in German? It's familiar for me, or will I speak in English, which is, I know I will be doing some errors and so on, but that's fine. We're not now doing it in English, and I feel fine with it. It's okay. Same thing for a young candidate, exposing him or herself to working in a new environment in a German company and so on, and sometimes having some knowledge of German, maybe on a level A2, B1, but still having a lot of fear making errors, of not being enough. And on the other
Mm-hmm.
side, on the employer's side, I really frequently encounter the situation where we have actually international firms, or this well-known, German hidden champions, so
Mm-hmm.
middle-sized family-owned companies that are the backbone of the German economy. And
Mm-hmm.
still,
Mm-hmm.
they look for people who are fluent in English, but they expect them to be also fluent in German. It means that actually the bias behind, or the fear behind, is they want to have a German to be sure that
Mm-hmm.
they understand the culture, even if it's not
Company
formulated that
culture.
way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then they would rather employ a German person fluent in English rather than an English native speaker, because
Mm-hmm.
they fear that they would not be understood. And this intercultural sensitivity is kind of here. It's
Mm-hmm.
rather in the form of a fear, I would say. But what
Mm-hmm.
really employers really do in the regarding, for example, intercultural sensitivity, is
Mm-hmm.
very little, as far as I
Yes.
see. And very often they think it's enough to give two trainings, and they
Mm-hmm.
usually train the foreigners and not the
Mm-hmm.
Germans.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're still in a kind of, rankism, or a kind
Mm-hmm.
of thinking, a majority thinking, saying, well,
Yes.
they
Yes.
have to adapt. They have
Mm-hmm.
to learn German, and not
Mm-hmm.
seeing it as also actually a challenge and an opportunity for
Mm-hmm.
our German-speaking people to speak better English, for example.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you touched on it. You gave a very complex answer. There are many angles that I wanted to jump in on this on, but I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try because
Okay,
I'm listening
sorry
to you.
if I
I'm
was
listening to you. No,
quick.
it's fine. It's good. I love it this way. Bring the complication. Yeah, I want this richness. I want this richness. Now, head of career center. You are the head of career center at Gizma Business School in Berlin.
Mhm.
Now, my first question to you is, now speaking of these fears that your students will maybe themselves also carry into the workplace, and the fears of the potential companies, is this cultural sensitivity something that is groomed into the students right through the entire course, or is it done just at the end when they're ready to get a new job?
I'm not quite sure I understood the word groomed. Sorry.
To groom means to, like, to grow, to nurture, the way you, like, you train a child coming up, give them values over a long
Hmm.
time. To groom, yeah, groom. You can groom your
Okay.
hair as well, or yeah, yeah, okay, good. So is sorry, is this something that you teach then, the participants at
Mm,
the Gizmo Business School?
mm.
Do you teach them these sensitivities, how to deal with these fears from themselves and also from the
Yes.
companies themselves, from the beginning of the studies, or is it
Mm.
just at the end?
Oh no! So from the beginning, I've realized, the career centers in universities usually do their core activity is actually, checking CVs and cover letters, and having relationships, cooperations with corporates
Hmm.
to have job opportunities for the students. This is the basic, yeah. And
Understood.
I realized that we this could be enough if we had German students, but here we have foreign students who will be experiencing anyway a culture shock when they come. They sometimes
Hmm.
also experience temperature shock,
Yes.
and so on. So it's something that has an influence. This experience um, influences, yeah,
Influences, yes.
their studies, and they're looking for a job, and they may tend to feel guilty about it, not to
Hmm.
be wow. So they're paying for the studies. It's a private high school, university, so they have a lot of pressure, maybe also from their families, to be
Hmm.
successful. And suddenly
Hmm.
you find yourself in a situation where you have fears. It's business. You should be, competitive and, let's say, winning personality. And suddenly you
Hmm.
kind of are confronted with things that are overwhelming. So I think if we want to be successful in offering job opportunities to the students, we have first, and this is what we do at the beginning, we support, we address the things. So we don't teach, we
Hmm.
address things. We open a space where they can learn also as a group, develop their collective intelligence, exchange their experiences. We're coming back to experiences all the time, because I think,
Again,
I don't have
experience
to
is making us.
teach them something, because I'm not having their specific experience. Also, for
Mhm.
example, for me as a white woman, I've
Mhm.
never had the experience that
You are a
people.
white woman.
I've never had the experience, of being in a minority situation
Hmm.
in a white country, and you come here as an Indian or as a Nigerian student. And
Hmm.
I'm sure I know that our students also experience racism and discrimination. So I can't
Yes.
tell them what they experience they do, but I can offer a space where they can
Hmm.
reflect about it. I can provide some background information about the German
Hmm. Hmm.
culture and help with the reflexivity. And this is what I
Yes.
introduced from the very beginning.
Yes, yes, that is good. I commend that. And, I kid you not. I always say the same wisdom comes back again and again in different forms. And that is a good thing. That is not cynicism on my part. It is me saying that it is good that we reflect on these things. And well, if I understand you correctly, you're saying then you openly converse with these ideas. You give them
Mm-hmm.
permission to converse with these ideas. So
Mm-hmm.
then they won't be shocked or thrown after, or some concept give off when they're faced with
Mm-hmm.
it.
Genau.
Yeah, so I appreciate that. No, coming back to the intercultural, the
Mm-hmm.
culture shock, I never ever got any kind of integration course in Germany,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I suffered for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because when I came
Mm-hmm.
here, they had to. Well, I was coming from Jamaica at the time, and they had to check my visa, my passport documents for very long. So I missed
Mm-hmm.
almost a whole semester. And
Oh.
during that semester, there were the integration courses, and I missed it. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, at the beginning, I thought, yeah, okay, I can learn from the people. But in retrospect, when I look back, I think I was stuck in Jamaica time for about 2 years, really. And there's certain little things that it's only years after I recognize that, nobody really told me these things. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what problems they might have caused in my life. I don't know what misunderstandings might have happened. Maybe I still have maybe some enemies, yes, that I don't even know why, because I
Mm-hmm.
never got that. And not saying that the university didn't do it, because they did it. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
To be fair, they did it, but it's just that the whole process of checking and so on. I think it takes at least a month, and because during that time, you just miss it, and for different countries, it's different. So unfortunately for me, I missed my integration, and yeah, now I do really feel
Mm-hmm.
it. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh man. Speaking of fears, all right. Well, if you are the go-between, Anna, coming back to what you just, you are the go-between again, if I understand you correctly, between let's say, the careers of your course participants and
Mm-hmm.
the companies.
Mm-hmm.
How do you then converse with these ideas of fear with the companies themselves? Because they have their culture, they have their drive, which
Mm-hmm.
is, yeah, basically shareholder value. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, they have also culture sensitivities. They're building firm culture, they call themselves international, and they do have some concern for the cultural aspects. But
Mm-hmm.
how do you help them to come into a conversation about fears that they might have, or concerns that they might have, real or unreal, about working with a foreigner?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Um, I'm just at the start of it. Let's say that I've been trying this on a very situational level so far. So
Mm-hmm.
when we usually have one person, I get in touch with one person in the company, and when the chemistry
Mm-hmm.
is good, or if the communication, the relationship works good,
Mm-hmm.
I can address this, and I see very often that address the fears as an employer. it's a kind of relief when it's surprising, first thing, to hear, the word fear in an organizational context, but it's
Yes, or love. Love
usually.
is another one.
Exactly, absolutely. Oh, there was a very interesting workshop done by a professor in physics, love and fear in the lab, to
Mm.
address these topics also in research. So this is a topic in almost all fields, I would say, all sectors.
Send me the link.
But I'm trying also to organize a meeting with the help of, for example, Berlin Partner, which is the structure in Berlin which does the Hauptstadt marketing, trying to
Yes.
sell the advantages of being in the city here, exactly,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and trying to organize a meeting between different universities and German employers who may have be reluctant, let's say, to employ foreigners,
Mm-hmm.
and to try to open a space, understand what is the position, the perspective of the other, and how we can
Mm-hmm.
also explain our perspective, how we can encourage people to do one step at a
Mm-hmm.
time, to try something, to do a test, and to get
Mm-hmm.
back and to see what are the lessons learned, and see, oh wow, we broadened our range, our comfort zone, let's say, and we
Mm-hmm.
would be ready to employ somebody, and it's already a success. So it's a kind of
Yes.
small step by step strategy.
Yes, we have to be careful. But yeah, some of these
Mm.
companies are also steeped in tradition, we would say. And,
Mm-hmm.
as I mentioned as well, the only real responsibility is, well, let's say shareholder responsibility,
Mm.
So these are the things. I mean, but these days we're now focusing a lot more on the relational, showing our values and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And we're also recognizing that, I mean, if we are serving a demographic, a certain demographic, then,
Mm-hmm.
well, I mean, these days, for example, I ask, don't just show me your written values, show me what your board looks like, yes? Because
Mm-hmm.
if you're
Yes.
making, I don't know, 30% of your revenue from a region that looks different, then
Yeah.
you should actually, entertain maybe some insight from, people from that culture if it's
Mm.
30% of your revenue,
Mm.
and your board should reflect that as well, how it looks.
Mm.
But
Mm.
that's a deep question.
Yeah, and
where I'm at,
yes, and
I won't touch on that too much.
we have we have it on different levels. Also in the non-profit sector, the same thing. Mm. Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Mm.
yes, indeed,
So
indeed, indeed.
diversity is it's a
It's an
big
important
task.
thing,
Yeah.
and it's not just talking, because as a
Mm.
people see through that, people
Mm-hmm.
see
Mm-hmm.
tokenism
Mm-hmm.
all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, all right. Well, thank you for that, Anna. So we're getting
Mm-hmm.
really complex. That's why I'm here. Yes, I know you have a lot to share. No, there's another thing that I just wanted to, I'm not really going to ask you a question here. I'm just going to throw something out really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Two things: myths about cultural sensitivity that you would want to break. That is the first one. Maybe there's
Mm-hmm.
things that we think that are not true. Maybe there are things that we think that are true as well. But, maybe you have a myth that you want to break. And then, yeah, I think we should just leave it there. Is there
Mm-hmm.
anything that you personally would like to share with the world that people think that is not necessarily true?
Well, I think it's a common observation. It's not very original, but I think in firms who deal with cultural sensitivity, there is a belief that it's enough if people know that there are differences. And
Mm-hmm.
so you will get some trainings. I've been also called a few years ago for, we need a cultural training for our physicians at the hospital to deal
Mm-hmm.
with difficult patients. So 2 hours of training. And I say, what are difficult patients?
Mm-hmm.
Oh well, Turkish patients, patients from Arabic countries, and so on. And can you explain a bit more? And they wanted an intercultural training to
Mm-hmm.
help physicians deal with that. But it was not, in 2 hours. It was just So it's a myth to think that it's enough to know, to have a kind of course for 2 hours, and you think you know how, I don't know, Indian people tick, and then you can work together and avoid any conflicts. And I think what we need to learn is rather what you mentioned also before regarding diversity. We need to learn to deal with differences, but the difference is not only in the other. I'm part of the
Ah,
difference if we define difference, yeah. And
yes, of course, of course,
so
of course,
it's also, and
of
I think
course.
one of the myths is that we can reduce this uncertainty just with a training.
Two
And I
hours
think
long.
cultural and diversity sensitivity is something that you have to train every day. You have to experience it and overcome conflicts or tensions and clarity and certainty. And
Yes,
that is
yes.
where skills can be developed. Otherwise, you just develop a kind of blindness for something that could occur just because you think you know. And I think it's more helpful to
Ah,
know that you don't know, because it keeps your mind open for yourself and for others.
that is fantastically put. You know, it's more useful to know that you don't know than to think you know. Wow, I
Mm.
like that. I
Mm.
think I'll borrow that one too.
Okay, okay.
The most beautiful things come from multilingual people,
Mhm.
because you throw these ideas together in such nice ways, unexpected ways sometimes. You speak French, Polish, English, and German, yes?
Mhm. Yeah,
Wow.
that's my working languages.
Nice. Nice. That was just so nice. That was so nice. I will definitely borrow that one with, quotation and the name.
Okay.
Yeah, and the link. I'm very good to my guests. I will give you a fantastic link. Yes, Uh, of course. Link juice is very good. I'll do
Mhm.
that for you. Yes,
Great,
I like the
thanks.
conversational way in which we're talking right now, and it's
Mhm.
just great. I like what you're saying also about, well, the fact that a 2 hour course might not be able to do it. It's, of course, breaking a myth. Knowing the theory of cultural, let's say, sensitivities and communication is not enough. We have to make it
Mhm.
experiential somehow,
Mhm.
coming back
Mhm.
also to what you have
Yeah.
on your website. I'll read it again for those of us who didn't hear because I find it so great. Wir glauben Erfahrungen zu machen, aber Erfahrungen machen uns. And another reason why I feel so good about this is that what I'm really trying to do here, I do offer formal lessons as well to people, but what this whole show is about, yes, it is really about creating context, interesting context for learners of English to develop their language by coming into contact with topics that should be of interest to them.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I just love this whole thing we're doing now is just it's just fantastic, Anna.
I'm
Thank you
enjoying
so
it
much.
very much. Thank you for
Thank you so
inviting
much.
me.
Yes, yes, of course, of course. All right. Well, there are issues of moving on. There are issues, for example, of culture shock. We spoke about that. Well, notions of time and power distance. Does that ring a bell?
Absolutely. I had a kind of picture in my head when you mentioned it. Um, because currently in my current job, I'm addressing students with their first name, and
Mm-hmm.
expecting them also to address me with my first name. It's the culture we have in the university. We're working
Yeah,
in
of
English,
course.
so it's even easier. If we were working in German, it would be different. And
Cycling, Zidu.
they do exactly. Or
Mm-hmm.
in French, we were in a French context, we would say first name but sie. So
Mm-hmm.
Anna, vous, which is
Oh.
not so familiar in Germany. So there are some nuances. And still here, for example, with the students who come from India, they keep telling me "ma'am" even when they write an email to me. And
Mm.
this is a kind of interesting experience I'm having right now, and I don't have a solution yet. I
Mm-hmm.
like to address it, but I don't want to be rude. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
kind of just now in suspension and looking for what I could do to find a good cultural sensitive way to do it. So to say, well,
Mm-hmm.
I would like to invite them to tell anatomy. Otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know quite well how we can address them if I want
Yes.
to avoid this hierarchy, I'm not above them. Most of them have also experience and so on.
Hmm.
So we're almost the same age, so there is not even a
Hmm.
seniority there. And
Hmm.
and still, do I have to oblige people to have this kind of equal relationship if they
Hmm.
feel more familiar with one where they put myself as where I am a man, So
Man,
this is an
yeah.
interesting kind of question
Mm.
mark I have.
Well,
Do you
look
have
at
an answer?
I do have an answer for that. I do have
Ah,
an answer.
thank
You know, the thing is, also, okay, again, on my show,
you.
there is me and there are two other personas. There is a
Mhm,
woman called Sibylle von Spitzen, and
mhm,
she's very direct. She says things very direct. She will say to a learner, Google it. Yes, or she will just call them lazy. And
uh-huh.
then there's another person. He's a little more relaxed, and he learned his English from films, and he just imitates people, and he gets by, and he never really he makes notes, but he never reads them again, and he learns from imitation. But
Mhm.
and he's much more relaxed. So the more relaxed person, his name is Flavio Pragmatico, and this persona would say you don't have to, let's say, reduce your rank or your hierarchical position, so
Mhm.
to speak. You just do it as an invitation. Just say, oh, come on, you can call me Anna. And you
Mhm.
might have to say that 2 times.
Mhm.
You might have to say that 2 times, but just do it as a nice invitation. You can call me Anna, and then you
Mhm.
ask, well, don't I call you Steffi, or don't
Mhm.
I call you, I don't know,
Mhm.
Mariam? Yes, you
Mhm.
can call me
Mhm.
Anna. Just do it as an
Mhm.
invitation, maybe once
Mhm.
or twice, nicely. Sibylle von Spitzen, on the other hand, she would say, don't you know this ma'am thing comes from the colonial past?
Yeah,
Yes, just
exactly.
drop it.
Uh-huh.
Yes, I'm not a ma'am.
Uh-huh.
It's over. This is colonialism speaking.
Ah,
Don't
okay.
use that
Mhm.
ma'am thing.
Mhm.
So you can me, I use these personas to make my show a little more
Mhm.
interesting. Yes, so I jump from one to the next.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's soft. Yes. So soft, just invite them. Say, you can
So
call
great
me.
idea.
Yes,
Mhm.
of
Yeah.
course. Of course,
Mhm.
of course. Or just say it hard. Some people need it hard. You just say,
Mhm.
don't you know that ma'am thing is from the colonial past?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
simple. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Just do it. And the thing
Yeah.
is, you can do it hard, but still do it with a
Okay.
smile.
Yeah. Mhm. Mhm.
Of course, of course. And
Mhm.
that will definitely ring a bell in a good
Mhm.
way, because I mean,
Mhm.
I'm also from some kind of colony, and
Mhm.
yeah. Just Jamaica was also a British colony, and we
Mhm.
also have some residues. Sometimes we use the sir and the
Mhm.
so on and so forth. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think that would work.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll try it.
Yes, just a nice
Yeah.
invitation, you know.
Thank you.
Let's see. Where were we? I think I lost track there because I got got carried away with my
A
two
power
characters.
distance. Power distance.
Power distance. Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, that's it. That
Mhm.
is it. Yeah, so this was an example, no, of
Mhm.
the participant feeling as if they have to slightly distance themselves
Mhm.
from you as a show of respect, but
Mhm.
you might feel as if they are kind of holding you back from making that more personal connection that you might desire in the
Mhm.
culture that you're
Mhm.
creating.
Mhm.
Yeah, I guess the question could be, how do you find out what exactly the power distance is in, let's say, a culture where you have suppliers to your company? And you might have a remote meeting. Coming back to the context, you have a remote meeting and you ask everyone, if there was a problem, if there was anything not so clearly. Let's say you have a
Mhm.
meeting teaching people how to do a certain process that you've
Mhm.
outsourced to India
Mhm.
or to wherever. Yes. And you
Mhm.
explain the process,
Mhm.
and then you invite people. Was there anything difficult? What was the most difficult thing? Is there anything I have to repeat? Is there anything you didn't understand? And
Mhm.
nobody says anything,
Mhm.
because because they don't want to embarrass you in the meeting,
Mm-hmm.
or they prefer to write an email afterwards, or they don't want to look stupid,
Mm-hmm.
or they're used to a frontal thing, they should
Yeah.
understand everything.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know how to negotiate that and to really find
Mm.
out if it was effective what you did?
Yeah,
you know
that's really challenging. Absolutely. And sometimes we have to be patient because things are happening in visible ways. And I think in Germany we're used to a very factual approach. We do protocols and we write down summaries and so on, and we explain things with sometimes very explicit, but we say things just once.
mm-hmm.
And in other situations, I will have to understand it. I will just have hypotheses. Hypotheses? What do you say? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
assumptions
Yes, yes,
about
yes, yes.
what the reason could have been. For example,
Yes.
maybe in the meeting, people won't answer to me because if there's a senior person, they say they are youth or from their culture, they will not voice their concern or their questions if the senior person doesn't speak. So the boss speaks could be a kind of unwritten rule.
Ah.
And I have to find out and make assumptions. It could be that way, that it's not
Mm-hmm.
as equal as we are in our company, for example, where the members of the team are equal experts, let's say, and they can really influence the decisions of their team leader. And I have to assume that it works a different way, that sometimes we have really to read between the lines. I think the Japanese say to read the air, that in Japanese school or in the youth socialization, you learn to read the air. So you learn to know and to be aware that there are things that are invisible and
Mm-hmm.
that shape reality. So a silence will
Mm-hmm.
be something different. It would be something very awkward, maybe between two people who come from a more, let's say, extrovert culture, maybe American culture, where it's not possible to share the silence. And I was told that one of the beautiful things in in friendship in
Mm-hmm.
Japan is when you are able to share the silence.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
It's not the easy. I can do that with my cat. I do that with my cat.
Absolutely great.
Yes,
And
yes.
of course, you will have people who love silence and who speak with their or share the silence with their cat in other
Mm-hmm.
contexts. But that's the idea: is just to be open to more possible, we say in France, more
Mm-hmm.
eventualities,
Possibilities. Yeah.
possibilities than
Yes.
our narrow, let's say, socialization
Yes.
brings us to do.
Yeah.
And I
My
think a lot, maybe as a last point, also being open with your intention. So
ah.
maybe asking people less direct questions, but just saying the reason why I'm taking time to do this or to explain that is because from the way we do it in our company is this and that. It may be different in yours. So just opening frames where people
Mm-hmm.
could join in, even if it's unfamiliar for them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
Thank you for that. That is the icing on the cake, being open with your intentions, because what that
Mm-hmm.
does is, well, yes, of course, you are also acknowledging the intelligence of others who well
Mm-hmm.
should be on your team if they're suppliers to your company. Of course, they have interest in the success of
Mm-hmm.
everyone involved. So if you say, well, listen, my intention is this. Maybe if they don't even understand what you said and what your instructions are, they will still help you to fulfill these intentions. Maybe they even, let's say, thinking of something that came to mind is they want to save your face as well. They don't want to
Mm-hmm.
embarrass you. So
Mm-hmm.
if they
Absolutely.
know what your intention is, then they will
Yes.
help you along the way.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that is definitely,
Yeah.
that's it. That's it. Thank
Yeah.
you. Through the complexities we got there. Thank you very much for that.
It's not my invention. I've been very inspired, and I'm grateful for these thoughts by Edgar Schein, who wrote several
Yes.
books about humble consulting and humble leadership. And I
Humble
think,
leadership.
yeah, and I think it's not the heroic leadership we
Hmm.
were used to have in a lot of situations where people are portrayed as heroes that make their
Yeah.
organization successful, but It's humble leadership or humble consulting. It's asking questions actually.
Yes. Yes, not being, that's a problem with men, I mean, my work with photography has taught me that, well, has emphasized to me that, us men here in Germany, I mean, I can say us men now, I've been here now for 17 years. We don't say enough that I don't understand. What do you mean? We don't say that. The men just pretend that they know some of the times and make a fool of themselves. And the women use that. And I mean, the thing, when I say that, I mean, a lot of the successful women that I know and work with, they have no problem in saying, I don't understand. What do you mean? And they ask, what do you mean? 10 times, even when they themselves think they understand, but they want you to say it again and again and again. So they get a clear understanding of what it is you mean. The men tend to, from my experience, pretend that they understand, and to their own detriment. Yes, just, I mean, I can be sexist towards men because I'm a man, so it's fine.
It's very
That's from
interesting.
from my experience. And again, another thing that you speaking of the humble leader, this insight came from a friend of mine who's a dance teacher, because I work with dance because the act of dance portrays, illustrates, articulates the way we have to change our approach, our action logic sometimes in life. So I work with dance because it inspires me on many levels, but just photographing it, yeah. And he said to me at one time that it's not you who make yourself great, it's the people around you. It's people who put you there. People give you greatness, and some people tend to lose sight of the fact that it's not you, it's the people around you. And I suspect that it is through humble leadership, as you put it, how I understand it, that you will probably get to that point. Yeah. Well, in Anna, we are in agreement. And in closing, I did promise that this was going to be a shorter interview. We've touched on so many wonderful things today. I'm just going to ask you one last question. Yes. And I'll frame it first by saying, what I do, I have chosen a career in which I work with people, whether it be training, coaching, or dance, working with the arts. I work with people. I like to see people blossom. I like to be in context, in connection with non-pretentious, real people. I like the realness of humans. Yes. And it makes me feel good. It's a feel good kind of job. It's not the best paying job as a trainer or coach, but um, it's very fulfilling and it gives me deep satisfaction. So I think I will continue doing that. Now, you are also doing that. I mean, again, please correct me if I am wrong, but as far as I know, just to repeat, you are now working, yes, successfully, and you have a fulfilling career as the head of career center at Gizmo Business
Yes, that's
School,
it.
which is very dynamic institution. I've even looked at some of your short courses there. I might be interested in, which one was I interested in? Um, yes, yes, yes. Oh, gender. Yeah, I like this one. Gender dynamics in the global workplace. Did a show on that as well. But anyway, you are here working. You also have your own site, respea.de, where you promise to accompany individuals or companies with, let's say, consultancy on intercultural mediation. Yes, you do that. In addition, again, of course, your Gizmo work. You also work with people a lot,
Yeah.
right? And my last question to you is, what is it about your work that really makes you feel good and is really fulfilling? What brings you to sleep peacefully at night? Tell me, I'd love to know.
Well, you said it wonderfully already. You said you love to see people blossom, and I think that's it. Yeah, I couldn't say it better.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a feeling of being kind of maybe going beyond these kind of technicalities of everyday life and help each other becoming
Mm-hmm.
who we are. And it's
Mhm.
almost it's a job in I think in any job I would do, even if I was, I don't know, maybe, at a very, if I had to pay the rent and the only possible job would be to, I don't know, go cleaning or do something
Mhm.
I'm actually too qualified from a formal point of view to do, but I could
Mhm.
physically do. Still, I
Mhm.
think it's kind of, if I have a job where I can live my everyday philosophy,
Mhm.
and have this dimension, it's fine. If I have
Yeah.
the impression I can contribute to other people growing and becoming who they are, I mean, what
Mhm.
else? I'm very grateful for it if I manage
Yeah.
this, and I think I see myself rather, like how do you say Mercury, a boat,
Mhm.
a
A Goethe,
messenger,
a messenger. Yes.
kind of a
Yes.
medium
Me
from
too. Me
things.
too.
Yeah, because sometimes
Yes.
I got people coming 15 years later. We
Mhm.
met by chance or at a conference
Mhm.
or something, and said, oh, in this training you told me or you said to me ta 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 ta,
Mhm.
and it changed my life. And I say, wow.
Mm.
And I wasn't
Yeah.
aware, but for me it's also not something that I'm just grateful to have been the person who was able to voice it or to transmit this message at the point where this person needed it and where it was helpful and she could grow. And
Mhm. Or he. Or
that's it.
he. Or he. Thank you.
Other person, of course. Yeah. How do you say they could grow? They could grow,
Yes, you
and
could
then
say they
more,
could go.
more
I'm just
neutral.
being
Yeah,
playful here. I'm sorry. I'm
exactly.
just being
And then
playful.
you
Sorry.
see, it's my French thinking because une personne or
Mhm.
German eine Person is feminine. That's the reason why. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm just being naughty here. Well, Anna, that is
Mhm.
fantastic. I made a mistake. Actually, that was
Oh.
a very good
Mhm.
question. However, I went too far into saying all these things about what I understand of what you get from it. However, I'm gonna make it a little more interesting for you. Now, you said that you, as a person who brings and gives energy, it's almost like you give people wings to fly, kind of, no? Would you say?
I don't give them wings. May I tell you a dream I had a few weeks ago?
Of course you may.
Um, I dreamed that my youngest daughter, she's 14,
Mm-hmm.
created her own company. She was
Mm-hmm.
producing flying chairs.
Mm.
And I was sitting on this chair, knowing that my daughter was a successful entrepreneur with a wonderful product. And
Yes.
I was flying over Spain with a
Mm-hmm.
beautiful song in my brain resonating.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just flying over Spain, which was it looked like a teppich,
A carpet,
a
maybe a
carpet. Thank
Persian
you.
rug. Yes.
I wasn't sure if it was just, red, orange, if there were spices or what the
Mm-hmm.
colors were made from. And I just had
Yes.
this beautiful song in my head, and I realized that they was flying. Yeah.
Ah.
But these were my wings. And
Uh-huh.
actually, when I went down, I realized that the chair was not a flying chair. It just gave me the impression that I was feeling secure. I was sitting,
Mm.
and so I could fly. I could dare to fly. So the
Ah.
chair was free, making me free from my fears. And it's
Ah,
the
okay.
first dream I had in my life ever of
Mm-hmm.
flying, because I have a fear of flying. And I
Uh-huh.
realized this is coaching. Actually, you have the wings, but
Already.
already you have them. You just need the small part of confidence or feeling of security, of psychological maybe or physical security, to allow you to
Mm.
spread your wings. So I'm not
Oh, that
giving
is
them wings,
fantastic.
they have them already. I'm just
That is
providing the chair.
Oh, that is fantastic. I also say I can't teach anything, also, I can't teach anything really, but but I can feel the role very well, and yeah,
Hmm.
actually I can, but in many ways I can't, People learn if they want to.
Yes,
However,
absolutely.
again, but coming back to what you said here, this makes perfect sense. You don't
Mhm.
really give them wings, but you help them to
Mhm.
recognize that they do have these
Mhm.
wings.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, but how do you feel when they fly away?
Oh, it's just, my heart is kind of, yeah, blossoming too. I'm just happy. Yeah.
And they never come back.
It's,
They fly
yeah, they're
away.
free,
Okay.
yeah, it's there. I'm lucky. I'm happy when my coaching clients leave after 3 sessions because they say,
Mm-hmm.
we planned 8 sessions, but actually now I know. And I know
Okay.
that from an economical point of view, I should be asking them to stay and make them dependent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And to say, you
Yeah.
need your coach, you need advice, and so on. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry, I can't help it. If they fly with their own wings,
Mm-hmm.
I've done my thing. It's my, that was my mission.
That's probably another topic, Anna, because if people really tell their intentions, what do I want from this coaching? Then you
Mm-hmm.
can say to them, okay, I can do this for you, and you can, yeah, so let's get economical now, quote a price that is not necessarily based on time, because once we limit both ourselves
Mm-hmm.
to time, then
Mm-hmm.
that becomes the maker and breaker of everything. And then time is like, it's like how we make, I'm not saying anything about my political position now, but how we make the issue of a virus a political thing these
Mm-hmm.
days. And
Mm-hmm.
then we forget the fact that a virus is just a virus. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's not a political thing. It's a
Mm-hmm.
virus. And as I
Mm-hmm.
said, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going there, but
We
it's
could.
how it's no, no,
Yeah.
no, no, please not.
No,
The
no,
only
no.
this is the thing, if we focus on the time and not on the intent,
Yeah.
then it becomes a time thing where you might even be concerned. You have to stretch the time because they're paying me, I don't know what, 500
Mm.
euros an hour
Mm.
kind of thing. But yeah, that's another story.
Mm. There is also a fantastic author I'd like to share, if it's
Please,
okay. It's
of course.
Christiane Singer. She's got a German sounding name. Uh, actually, we say Christiane Singer.
Yeah.
She wrote in French, and she's for me, she's a how do you say, novelist. But
Yes.
actually, for me, she's a philosopher, a kind of a
Yes.
philosopher of everyday life. And she wrote fantastic books that help a lot about resilience. She
Mm.
wrote Du bon usage des crises, how to use well crisis.
Ah.
Ja, so von der guten, I don't know how to translate it. Du bon
Hmm.
usage des crises.
I
And
understand what you mean.
mm,
Yeah. Yeah.
and oder Les âges de la vie, so different phases in life. And yeah,
Uh-huh.
she's very helpful. I can recommend her.
Please,
Um,
send me the
mhm,
links. I will
mhm,
definitely, as well, there's gonna be show notes as well, and anything
mhm,
that you send that you'd like to share,
mhm,
I would love to
mhm,
include these as well, and maybe even read. I like reading nonfiction though, but if
mhm,
there is if there's a measure of philosophy there, I will be more interested. Yes, so Anna, we've had a wonderful talk today, and before we leave, I would just like to ask you, what is the latest and greatest project you're working on right now? Please tell us a little about that. There must be one. Tell us a little about it.
Uh, so on one side, I'm a mom of two young teenagers, and I think one of my projects is to accompany them also here through this period of life, which is also challenging now in COVID times. And
Yes.
the other thing has also to do, so it's their biography, let's say, and the role I can play in it. Not
Hmm.
too much, but enough. And the other thing is that I will be turning 49. I will be 49 next week, and
Congratulations. There's
thank
so many
you.
things that only get better with age.
Yes. I really
Indeed.
enjoyed, and
Yes.
I've been writing my diary since I'm 10, so 10 or 12. And I've kept all these books throughout my different changes. I've been changing places 17 or 18 times in my life so far, and still they're accompanying me. So I feel now like looking back, and maybe there was an intention behind this writing a diary. It has always been a pleasure to do so, to have my time, to kind of settle down and reflect, but maybe I can do something with that now and share it. I don't know. So it's not quite a project, it's an idea, let's say. It's not a concept or a concept yet. It's an intention, but maybe it will take shape in the coming weeks.
Yes. Well, Anna, I really do appreciate that. And I will stay tuned. And well, we are in contact. So please do let me know when that has come out. And how it's developing. I'm interested. With your daughters, for example, you had the benefits then of, let's say, being witness to their life, shaping their whole experience lightly, as you said, and that in itself is a fantastic thing to talk about. And this kind of reflection brings us again to ourselves. I always say, for example, in relationships, we learn more about ourselves than even the partners we're with. Maybe I read that somewhere, but I find more and more that it's true. It's one of those bits of wisdom that you get with age, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's all about the self. Yeah. Right. So, Anna, I want to take this opportunity again to thank you for taking part today. It was a real gem, a real gift for me. You've made my Saturday.
For me too.
You've made my Saturday. And I do wish you all the best in your future endeavors. And yeah.
Let's keep in touch.
Of course, we will. Okay. All right, Anna. Thanks again.
Thanks a lot for inviting me and for your patience with my long answers. But
of course,
you were very
that's what I want.
You had very inspiring questions, so
thanks.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
All right, Anna. All right. So all the best then. Thank you.
Thank you.
I am grateful.
Okay.
All right then. Bye-bye.
Bye.
With a small win is always a good way to begin. Check out the show notes for this episode at www.trainingtree.de/podcast or englishcoachpodcast.com. Like it if you like it, and if you don't, lie to me. Just kidding. But still, feel free to share it with a friend, post a rating, or better yet, give meaning to the things you think about the show by using the feedback form to tell me personally what you think. Subscribe only if you feel like, so you know when there's a new episode available. Thanks for listening. Looking forward to hearing from you, and bye for now.